Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, whichever one, to whoever's watching this. And today's topic will be on, is Nike getting lazy or desperate? Either one. I think it could be either or, because it's to the general sneakerhead, it doesn't look good. It really doesn't. Um, the first point is like creativity. Create it is a person to person basis with whether or not you like a shoe, but I like majority of people do think that some of these shoes, this is from 2024, so this is our past year of releases. This is a rehash of this shoe. This right here. You see the yep, you see the similarities. Slightly darker shade, slightly like lighter shade on the new release, but it just looks like they're running out of ideas, And that's just kind of like the start of my gripe, you know. This is a good release, and like, you know, in terms of like release choice, I think it's a good, release because this is the first time this shoe has ever been retro since 1985. And going to the entire pack, the entire pack, you can see we have got a retro of these metallic burgundies back here for the first time. Now, if Jordan Brand knew what they were doing with their whole 1985 line, you know, they would release these in the 85 cut. They would release these in the 85 cut. They would release the metallic oranges in the 85 cut. They have already released out the lows in the 85 cut. They basically need to re-release besides the metallic burgundy. They need to re-release all of these in the 85 cut. Now, will they do numbers? Probably not. Not a lot of people are willing to spend $200 retail on a pair of Jordan ones because they're not very comfortable. And that's also part of my next video, which I think should be a pretty interesting and probably very divided video. But that's for next week. And it's just kind of just scrolling through. It just kind of feels like you know they kind of just was like, okay, what do we do here? What do we do for this release? What do we do for this release? They just were just throwing colors on a board. This is creative. I think this is a very creative collab. Um, did it sell at all? Um, I think it's just because people think that it's hard to wear, but it definitely has its creative juices shown in the way it's made. You know, these I just it's not really doing it for the most of sneakerheads. Like I'd say not sneakerheads because a lot of actual sneakerheads like this shoe, but would you really pick it up for 215? No. $215 for this shoe. A Jordan 4 in 2018 was 190, and that was for the OG retros, and then it was still 190 for the regular like Jumpman retros, but 215, there's no premium materials here. The only thing different is it has a different colored box, which, wow, most people don't really keep the box. And I genuinely just think like it's a nice colorway. It's just Jordan Brand is shooting themselves in the foot with the pricing because it's just like, man, 215. It's very, very steep for a pair of Jordan 4s. Especially for 2024 at the time. This shoe will probably be 2025 this year, which is ridiculous. You know? Don't get me started on this. This was their whole denim line, I feel, is very, very It was a miss. They saw they had a thing with the Levi's Jordan 4, you know. They saw it. Jordan Brand saw, hey, we got a hit with these three shoes, and very much so. I agree that all of these look really nice. They really do, and their price commands, they look really good. Makes sense. They're a collab with Levi's, but this doesn't look good at all. Maybe to like the two fans out there that do like this shoe. I should probably state this. I'm not, saying if you buy this shoe, you're wrong for doing so because everybody's style is different. It doesn't matter. Buy what you like. What I am trying to say is for a lot of shoes like this, you can wait for them to go on sale because it will. It will most of the time, unless it's like a collab. And even then, collabs are starting to go on sale. For basketball shoes, I'm not really too um informed on how these perform on the court, So I'm just gonna skip right past them. These are kind of just a general release. They're there to be on the shelf for maybe, let's say your kid needs some shoes going back to school. You get them for them. You get these for them. Nothing crazy. It's a nice colorway, but it's not like it's gonna fly off the shelves. Same thing with this one. This is a grade school exclusive. These for a women's exclusive, it doesn't really. I Obviously they made it for the women. I haven't really seen any women wear these. They've been out for almost a year. Come to think of it, I didn't even know they released. So you should probably gauge, unless you're really really into this stuff. A lot, not a lot. They just Jordan Brand keeps dropping so many shoes that people are just not able to keep up. Even some of the most dedicated people, because who who's gonna keep up with all of this stuff? This is okay. Mine like yeah. A lot of these are general releases, stuff that's for Foot Locker and such. Basketballs, basketball shoes. Performance. This isn't it. This is like a fusion. Um, I have strong words for this, but um, it's a good donor shoe. It's a good donor shoe. You get the six midsole right here. You can take it. You can swap it onto some sixes. If you want to restore them. 165. I wouldn't buy it for 165. I understand for these. I should say I understand the concept. They're for people that can't they can't they don't have the ability to put on their shoes like other people can, which I do commend them for trying. Um, it's an interesting design, for its intended purpose, and I'll leave it at that because it does serve its purpose. Slides doesn't really count. Spizikes, some old heads would probably go crazy for these back in the 2000s, but not right now. You know, the midsole is probably good for some Jordan 3 swaps. If you need an all black midsole, you could come back to these when they're on like when somebody on eBay has it for like $80. Clogs, Jordan Brand's just trying to ride the wave of other brands, creating clogs as well, like you know the former Yeezys, foam runners, and stuff like that. The Croc clogs taking off and stuff like that. Crocs have always been popular, but this just feels like a cash grab. These are okay. These are actually not bad, but in terms of selling out and actually doing numbers, they didn't. You know, same with these. Same with these. A lot of these shoes, a lot of these shoes are kind of just. Oh, there. This is a perfect example too. This shoe, a lot of people want. Not this. Jordan Brand has a thing where they like to hear people say, "We want this shoe. We want this shoe." They're gonna go, "Oh, okay. We're not gonna give you that shoe. We're gonna give you something different." And this is what the original looks like. You know. I'll close out these tabs real quick. This is what the original looks like. This is a clean shoe, but that feeling where you want something, you ask. Let's say you ask for something for Christmas, right? And you get something that's similar but not the same thing, and it feels like they went out of their way to get you something similar instead of the same thing, instead of the thing you actually asked for. It feels like a niche reference, but like, that's what it feels like because I was like, there was no point in releasing this, you know? Well, I would say the retro would have done better, even with the old heads would have ate this up, you know? This is for people that, were in high school back then. It's 2010. They have their families now. They probably want to take a trip back to memory lane with that shoe. I'm just scrolling past a bunch of these because, these are just kind of like, I'm not gonna say shelf sitters, but like they're not the main Jordan line, basically, and that's what I'm focusing on. Like the retros from 1 through 14. If you want to count till 23, it's fine by me, but right now I'm counting 1 through 14. These are cool. It's just the price point, man. The price point, these used to be 125 a couple years ago. Not a lot of people want to pay 140 for a low when, they're 190 now for a high. This was a great idea. The Jordan 17 retros, bringing them out the vault. Now what they did wrong was 300. Now, I get it. The briefcase, you know, it makes sense. You want to charge more because you have the briefcase. How much were they? 200, you know? These aren't 17s. Those are different. 150. No, they were for 200. 200. $100 increase. Yes, inflation, it makes sense. But at the same time, 300 counting tax, it's around 350 depending on your area. 350, 340, around that range for a pair of shoes retail. It's just, it doesn't make sense. Here's another example of them trying to capitalize on a popular colorway, but just tweaking it so very slightly. Let's go with this. Look at these. Cappuccino, not cappuccino, latte. You know, they're nice, but they're never going to be these, basically. And I get what Jordan Brand's trying to do. Oh, you missed out on these? Here's your consolation prize. But at that point, most people that missed out on these, you know, they either paid resale for them or just waited a little bit to get them a little bit under a little bit under their asking prices. This just didn't. It sat on shelves. You know, they're just this is. I keep cutting myself off, but this is a slap in the face. We're finally getting, the original Taxi 12s, where this red part is, what is it? I believe white. It might be black. I've never owned this shoe personally. I've worked on a pair, but it hasn't. It's clouded my memory from what they. Yeah, black. There you go. Now, as you can see by just looking at the images, they've done this a couple of times already. We're black taxis, black taxis, Chinese New Year's. They're almost taxi 12s is what a lot of people were saying because they were just like, we want taxi 12s, and then just like, no, we're gonna give you something not taxi 12s close, but not the actual taxi 12s. And of course, the Travis Scott Jordans, they always sell out no matter how polarizing they are. I will leave my opinion out of this one because a lot of people do like this shoe. These sold out. These sold out. I remember they sold out. I tried to get a pair. I didn't get them. I'm a little bit upset about them still, but these are nice, and a lot of people seem to agree as well. It's a very nice shoe, very very out there. I would say they definitely gave more creative liberty for this shoe and its color mock-ups. Like, yes, it's a black upper, but actually no, because the white pair was literally the same thing. So you know what? I'm gonna take that back. because it really is just the exact same shoe, but black. Like, yeah, no, no. Space Jams, Space Jam lows. I get it. You want to wear these during the summer. If you wear Jordan 11 highs, if any of you have wore Jordan 11 highs, you know how bad those are in the summer. Those are not fun. So they made the lows. This makes sense. I understand this. 190, cannot understand the price. It's probably going to be a repeat theme. Can't understand the price. Jordan 1 Shadow lows makes sense. We could use another retro of the Shadow highs though, but what do I know? This shoe was a hit though. This military blue was a hit. I had two pairs of these because I had the 2012 pair, the 2012s pair, yep. And then I had bought the 2024 pair twice because, it was 12 years before until the shoe retroed. This makes sense. This is a good release. People were waiting and they gave them the shoe that they wanted, 215. It's a lot of money. It should have been around 200 max. Now the Travis Scott release, they sold out. They didn't do numbers for the resale market, but they sold out. These sat on shelves. Very nice colorway, but people are not paying $210 for a regular Jordan 1. Why would you do that? You just it's not an original colorway. If you like the color that much, I can guess you would pay that much, but even then, you can just wait for them to go on sale, which these did. These went to outlets. These threes, 200 bucks. Jordan, the whole theme I'm getting at is just Jordan Brand is just shooting themselves in the foot with these prices. Because why were these 180, right? It doesn't make sense. These are a regular Jordan 1, right? These had special packaging as well. Jordan 1, 180. Why were these 210? The same thing. Why were they 210? Nothing different. Just the colorway, you know? Let me see if I can find some more from 2024. If not, I'll just move on to 2025 because there's even more things that I could talk about. These felt like a throwaway. These felt like such a throwaway. $210 for a non OG retro doesn't make sense for people to buy. I'm not gonna say anything about this. Just gonna avoid that. Oh, they dropped the Fire Reds in 2020. They're just gonna reuse the same color blocking, which I guess it sells even for 210. It does sell. It's just like it's not creative. But then but then again, I'm gonna play devil's advocate because like what else can you do to such a old model? Because it still sells. The Jordan 4 always sells, even if it sits on shelves. This was a good retro. Not a lot of people bought it for this 210 price because why are you charging a premium for a shoe that not a lot of people besides the OGs would buy? Not a lot of people are gonna buy this. You know, those hit outlets. I don't remember these releasing at all, in all honesty. So that should be, somewhat telling. These are based off of a Jordan 4, which, why do that when you could just release the actual 4 and because these you cannot wear safely because these plastic bits will break off now. These are from 2012. These aren't going to last much longer if you have them, you know. Those are nice. Not for 200 though. A lot of these shoes, look, another retro from 2000s retro. 210. It just you're gonna pay a premium for a shoe that's the same material as any other retro, and it's just like people don't want to do that. All right, let's swap to here. Already off to a great start with that. This is a good release. This is a great upcoming release because 210 it is very steep. I'm never gonna justify the price for this brand because it doesn't make sense. Some of these prices will never make sense to anybody. Nobody, not I feel like not even The people that are loaded with money are gonna pay this price. But for a shoe that was going for thousands of dollars in 2013, 215 doesn't sound so bad when you compare it like that, you know? Now the Jumpman Jack. These are these are good Halloween shoe, you know? 200, same retail as the other ones. 200 for that. Some these are called the colorway is medium soft pink, but what they're calling them is 30th anniversary. Um, there's not really any story behind why they're called 30th anniversary from what I've looked into. So I have a feeling they're gonna sit. Oh, and then another Jordan 17. These look amazing. You know, these look really nice. But 305. I just it doesn't make sense to charge that much, you know. And then Jordan 11s, they always sell out, right? Always. The Christmas Jordan 11 is been a thing every single year. It's always sold out. This won't. This will not. This is not during Christmas time. These will not sell out. Number one, people do not like this lettering. Number two, it just does not look right. That's the same point as number one. But the blue, it's just not a good colorway for most people. And then to seal the deal, $230. This like anytime Jordan Brand tries to release something different, they always find the need to make it worse for themselves because $220. The only thing different about this shoe is that it has Nike Air on the back instead of Jumpman. It is not a special collab. It is not a OG colorway. It is just a green Jordan 3 that they are charging 220 for. These are cool. The original Voodoo Zions went for a lot of money, so I have a feeling people are gonna try and get these for a consolation prize, and it is right before Halloween, so it makes sense. The price, I feel like I'm just gonna stop mentioning the price unless it gets really crazy because all of these are very overpriced. These women's shoe, not gonna speak on whether they're nice or not because they're for women, not for not for men. Um, or not for men, I should say. They are they're made in mind for women, but they do come most most women's shoes do come in extended sizing because to each his own. Basically, I'm not gonna hate. I have some niche weird shoe taste that people like dislike the shoes that I like, and it is what it is. That's the whole point of having this whole community. People like different things, and I like that about it. Taxis finally. Uh, Not much to say about them. 210, big price increase. Another Jordan 11, mind you. At one point we only had one Jordan 11 release per year, and then they started doing two, and then they started doing three, and this is I believe there's three or four this upcoming year. These will sit. These will sit. 230. Nothing special about them. You know, no backstory. These will sell. This is an OG colorway. These are gonna sell. They're not gonna sell out, but they're gonna sell very nicely. I know a lot of people are on the fence with these because of this toe cap, but I see it going. No, no, never mind. 210. I don't see it going to sell out at all. Another. Uh, this is definitely gonna sit, just because this is a women's release. They might not extend. They might not offer extended sizing for this one because it just doesn't seem like an extended sizing one. You know, these will sell out. The original one was not the original one. The 2020 retro is going for $1,000. 215, not a good price, but people are gonna buy it because it's an all black shoe. I might even go for not might. I'm going to go for them because it's an all black Jordan and I don't have any. You know, they got me there. This isn't an actual mock-up. This is the distinct like colorway, like the finalized colorway. So I can't really say if they're gonna sell out. But Album Manir releases tend to, or they, it's either a spectrum. They either go sell out, they either sell out, or they sit and then they go in outlets. No in between. You know, these are the 11s everyone's waiting for. Everyone that likes 11s has been waiting for this shoe to come back out since 2014, you know, and they will be paying that 230. And Jordan Brand's going to be loading their pockets for Christmas, not through creativity, but just retroing the same thing. But from those previous 211s, maybe they shouldn't even be creative, because man, some of these colorways just not good. Bugs Bunny Retro makes sense. Haven't seen this shoe in almost a decade or a little over a decade, 210. It's just gonna end up going. The way I see the retro pricing right now is just gonna keep going up and up and up and up and up. You know, another 2006 retro, 2006 retro. These come out 2026. A lot of these shoes are older retros finally getting their re-releases. Like this is gonna be its first retro 205. I had the old shoe. I'm not gonna pay 205 for them. And then we get into shoes that are not. Some of them are finalized, but some of them they're just up in the air. But like these came out less than 10 years ago. We're already getting a retro, so kind of just head scratching my head on why. I can tell they're getting desperate because they're re-releasing a bunch of OG, or at least shoes that people had wanted for a long time. When Jordan Brand was popular, and now that it's starting to slow down, they're getting desperate and they're trying to re-release the things that old heads or people that have grown up now they weren't able to buy when they were kids. Like these, I was never able to buy them when I was a kid. Doesn't mean I'm gonna pay 220 for them. You know, it is what it is. Um, yeah, no, I don't see any way that Jordan Brand's gonna get out of this hole where a bunch of their shoes are not selling out, even if they're OG colorways, because it just it feels like the brand is running out of creativity. And what's gonna happen when you finish well, you can't even finish retroing all the retros because all the OGs because you haven't even retroed some of them once. And instead of retroing those that have never been retroed, you decide to re-release the same shoe three separate times over and over and over because it sells, but people are getting tired of it because they probably still have their first retro or even the second retro. So why would they need the third one? Why? Because it's new. People are not buying shoes the same way that they did before. This is not the pandemic. People are saving their money. The economy does not call for 225 retail, 230 retail, 210. Jordan 1s that were 160 are now 200 minimum. That's not including tax. None of this is including tax, which is ludicrous. But what more can you do? For the most part, I'll wait for them to go on sale. They sell out. Oh well, I'll live without them. But that's about it for this video. Um, if you guys are going for any of these shoes, uh, I wouldn't say good luck because they're most of them are going to be pretty easy to obtain. But don't sleep because some shoes do sneak up with resale prices. But I have a feeling a lot of these will not. I have a feeling a lot of these will go on sale. So spend wisely. Don't waste all your money. You still got to buy gifts, or you still got to eat too and pay bills. Shoes don't pay bills no more.